Welcome to the Secret Handshake. This is Sev.
And I'm Drugger.
So, Draugr, because this episode was so freaking short, do you think that they should have added more yelling at a little girl?
I mean, I think they probably could have yelled at Leia a little bit more, but no, it's probably just fine the way it is. Because I mean, otherwise they would have continued on with the torture, and we don't need to see a little girl tortured. So
Maybe we could have used more lava or fire. I didn't really see that this time. I'm just saying I'm a little disappointed in that part.
yeah, we
I
almost
mean,
used the same joke 2 episodes in a row, but that's okay.
well, I
It's
mean,
just
if you saw how Obi-Wan entered, it was the same as Cal Kestis, right? Entered in Jedi Falling Order. So,
yeah,
and he had lava.
yeah. hmm
But I didn't see any lava here.
No, there wasn't any lava. I'm sorry. Sorry to disappoint you.
They're not.
Um,
They're not good on all lava there. Huh?
I do find it interesting that they did the exact same thing as a video game from like when did that game come out? Like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, something like that. But even if it's a year ago, 2 years ago, whatever, it's still interesting that they do the exact same, pretty much the exact same way of getting into the fortress. They go underwater in the video game. The Jedi comes out, and that took place probably a few years after this, or was it before? I don't know the timeline on that exactly, but either way, it's a little odd.
So yeah, Jedi Fallen Order happened in 2019, and it took place 5 years after the event of Revenge of the Sith. So I think this is 10 years,
10 years,
right?
yeah.
So yeah, it's like halfway in between then.
It's a little weird that it's the exact same thing. I mean, I guess their security could have lapsed between a 5 year gap there, but still in the exact same way, and it still happened. I mean, I don't know.
And with the flooding, you think they would have upped the whole flooding issues that they had?
Right? Yeah, because they even flooded a good portion of the base 5 years earlier in the video game. I realize it's not that big of a deal, but still, it goes for the whole um, lore, timeline continuity kind of thing can be an issue if you're not careful. And I feel like Disney is not overly careful with their timeline, and they probably should be.
Yeah, they're not overly worried about the whole timeline stuff. Mentioning timeline, I believe there is something about the Grand Inquisitor, I wanted to mention in this call. I saw this article the other day, and I think you might have too, where they said that they wouldn't break canon in the
hmm
Obi-Wan series. One of the writers would.
Yeah.
So, thinking back about the Grand Inquisitor, we haven't seen him, and we saw him die. Wink. What's
Right.
your thoughts there?
Well, I think that he's probably not dead, or there's something specific that they're going to do. Um, I think if I remember right, um, there was something they said in the article that we were both talking about, that they both said that they would never break canon. So basically, he's not dead. They basically admitted that the guy's not dead. But they also said it in a certain way that kind of made me wonder if he's going to be like if they're going to fix him like Cyborg fix him, or whether he's going to be a clone or something like that. Just because of the way that they put it, it was something sort of sounded like I think they used the word like programmed or something like that, which was like a very weird terminology to use for a character. But yeah.
There is a thing so in I think so I saw someone mention this before, but in Rebels, there is a thing that he says, the Grand Inquisitor says, which is he says there are things worse than death before. I think he
hmm
says that before he dies or something like that. There's fates
hmm
worse than death, and maybe this is part of that where he's like,
Could be.
hey, fate's worse than death, and he comes back to life or something, and that it's not a great experience for servitude or something. I don't know.
hmm
Um, I also wanted to touch on something I was thinking about from the Obi-Wan standpoint is that you know how in I'm thinking through this one about Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader. Oh well, Anakin and their experience. If you remember from episode 4, right? This is what makes me think that there's going to be a huge fight and Obi-Wan is going to win the battle. So, in episode 4, Darth Vader walks up to when they're about to fight Obi-Wan. Darth Vader says, "When I left you, I was but the learner, but now he is the master." So that
Hmm.
must mean that like Obi-Wan once again, I mean it only makes sense cuz like right now it's 1 for 1 essentially cuz Obi-Wan lost this latest battle. So it'd be kind of weird for them to meet again and Darth Vader to say that. Cuz when Obi-Wan and Anakin last saw each other was on Mustafar and now
Hmm.
they've seen each other in this one. So in my opinion, it definitely must mean that Anakin once again meets Obi-Wan and gets like Obi-Wan just like either demolishes him or something like that, and like because he says, "When I left you, uh, I was just a learner." So
Hmm.
I think I don't know. What do you think about that? I think because I think it'd break canon if Obi-Wan doesn't beat him in the last battle and school him
Um,
at least.
yeah, I mean that makes sense. The only thing I would say in general is well, there's a lot of things that I could criticize in general about the show so far, but I think it's kind of hard to criticize a show, especially a limited series that's basically going to just be these 6 episodes, without seeing every episode. Like, there's a few things I could pick out that I'm like, I don't know how they're going to fix that. But then there's stuff like what you were just talking about that it's like we won't know until we see the next 2 episodes and if that changes anything. Um, but I mean, there is stuff like in this episode. I know we talked about Leia uh, basically finding out that Obi-Wan Kenobi is not Ben but Obi-Wan. So it is a little bit like she finds out in this one. Obviously, she knows his name now. So that kind of already messes with Episode 4 in a way. Actual Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Um,
Well,
so
in a way, it doesn't. You could say right because she says when she says, "Hey, Obi Wan, you I think she what she say like fought with my father or worked with my father or whatever, right?
served my father in the Clone Wars or something like that.
Yeah.
Which is
So
kind of
I'm
an awkward way of saying it to begin with because that was never really the case,
right.
but I mean that was the continuity stuff for Star Wars has always been a little bit of a mess because you're talking about stuff that was made what now 50 years ago almost, pushing 50 years ago. And
Yeah.
and they're still adding stuff to the continuity now. So, yeah, it's always going to be a little bit squirrely.
Yeah. So you do think then that like if you think Obi Wan and Darth Vader are gonna have a showdown again then before the end of the series?
I mean, it makes sense. I don't. I'm pretty sure that they would, uh, but maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that's it. But that seems kind of um, lackluster. It doesn't really hold what people would want to see from this. And one of the things that people wanted to see was, I'm pretty sure, would have been Darth Vader and Obi Wan fighting. A little bit more with a little bit more gusto than what we see in A New Hope.
Well, do you feel looking at this series so far, do you feel that this is an Obi-Wan Kenobi series? Or do you feel like this is like the third sister, I think her name's Riva series and Princess Leia series? Because I kind of feel like people came to see Obi-Wan and Darth Vader, and I feel like they're secondary characters. What do you feel the same way, or do you feel differently?
I don't know if secondary is the right word, but I do feel like they give an awful lot of screen time to the third sister and Leia, um, which a lot of the time, at least the past episode was it 2 and 3? Yeah. I mean, Leia was with Obi-Wan the whole time, so they were pretty much together anyway. So we always saw Obi-Wan when we saw her, but it has been a lot of those two characters over Obi-Wan. Um, I would hate to go through and actually count up the minutes on screen that each character, has been, but it does seem that way for sure.
Okay,
Hmm.
let's get back into this episode. So, and I noticed at the start of it, Obi-Wan is burnt, right?
Hmm.
He looks like he's bleeding. Everything goes to the back to tank. It seems like he's taken out quite quickly, but I feel like he was set in there long enough to like he's not healed, but his scarring and he started getting scarring and stopped bleeding. Is I feel
Hmm.
like what he got out of that back to tank.
Hmm.
Um, it looked like he was having some visions of Darth Vader and feeling like what do you feel is kind of going on there with there? It seems like he had like felt related in a way to like what Darth Vader because you saw
Well,
him like what?
I was just gonna say, from what I understand, most of the time when Vader um, isn't out doing stuff, he's in, a back to tank or some sort of healing thing, because it takes a lot to basically even keep him alive, from what I understand from uh, different things. Like there's even a one of the Darth Vader comic books where he has like a whole team of like droids and technicians and stuff that constantly like fix his armor and fix him up when he comes back because he's like just barely being kept alive, even though you know between the dark side and the droids and actual medics and stuff, that's the only thing that's keeping him alive, it seems.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, he's just in a walking like medic suit, iron lung essentially, or
Yeah,
whatever to
kinda.
keep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you feel like then he was in like the back to tank too, and that's how like what do you feel like that like connection there is with Obi Wan? You kind of feel like he was feeling there was a thinking about
Yeah, I don't know if he
Vader or
was
something.
having like force vision, or a connection in the force, or whether the show was just showing that they're 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 both effed up now. I don't know.
Yeah, because
Although
I noticed
Vader
that.
much worse, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, I noticed they showed his like arm cut off for Vader, and then showed Obi Wan's arm. So it was kind of interesting. They were kind of like comparing. Um, so you noticed too that they he kind of I think at the beginning of the episode, essentially you see Obi Wan as he gets out of the tank. He's like, I need to go get Leia, and he's sitting there going to the head guy. He's just like, hey, you don't understand these problems. You know, I'm Obi Wan. I know the Empire's evil, and I don't know the character's name, but he was just like, they took my wife. So
Hmm.
he kind of got shut up Obi Wan there.
Yeah.
So I think we actually see her later in the episode, and she's I don't know if she's dead or if they're just kind of like frozen as like a trophy or something that's going on there.
Yeah, they showed several different force users. Even one was like a youngling from like the actual Jedi Order. Um, and they don't really say. He calls it a tomb. Obi-Wan calls it a tomb. Um, but they don't really say whether these people are like being kept like frozen, or like in carbonite the same way that a Han Solo was, or if they're actually dead and just being kept, their genetic material is being kept around. Because I got to imagine that they're cloning people or something, but I don't know that for sure.
Yeah, I would assume so because then they are. I think when you get into the not to bring this in too much, but the prequels and stuff like not the prequels, the sequels, they have to deal with
Mm,
cloning and stuff like that for Darth Sidious and everything.
mm-hmm.
So I would assume they're gonna try to incorporate his somewhere soon in some kind of series his experimenting with force user cloning or something. Um, so they go to Mapuza, I think is the name of the planet, No, no, not Mapusa. They're going.
That's
They go to
yeah,
what?
yeah the
Mapusa's where.
where they came from, I think, wasn't it?
Ah, yeah, Mapusa's where they came from. Okay, so they basically go to Nur, right?
Hmm.
The water moon thingy, and they do. They steal from a video game. Swim underneath, like we talked about earlier, and it was kind of interesting. He went in there, snuck around,
Hmm.
using some force powers. It looks like he's starting to get his, get a little comfortable with using the force more.
How Obi-Wan Kenobi got his groove back. Is that what you're saying?
I think that's what I'm saying. I think that's
Okay.
exactly what I'm saying. Right. So I think that's. I thought that was kind of interesting. I thought the Talia was, you know, she kind of threw her weight around. It was kind of interesting to see her, walking around the place. She was walking around the place trying to get things done,
Hmm.
helping Obi-Wan, navigate and everything else. She
Hmm.
was kind of loud. I felt like in that Inquisitor room, or not Inquisitor room, but in infrastructure room of some sort or whatever, security room of some sort, and she was talking to Obi-Wan. It's like it felt like she was in a library and everyone could have heard her being like, "Yo, Ben, yeah, go this way." Aren't we looking for a Ben, Obi-Wan?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that was a bit silly, but
yeah, I'm not trying to hate on it or anything. It's fine. It doesn't need to be perfect, but I thought it was kind of funny. She was just like, the one guy even looked at her when she kind of talked a little loud.
hmm.
So, what did you think about Princess Leia being tortured? I know we talked about adding more, but we decided that that was unnecessary at this time.
I don't think that they technically didn't torture her. Basically, she just the third sister there, the Inquisitor, talks to Leia and um, tries to convince her to tell her where this path leads. The path is the uh, basically the underground railroad for Jedi and Force users, and it leads to, I guess the next step was Jabim, and Leia technically knew that, and so that's the information they're trying to get out of her, but she won't tell, and she basically is kind of lying or putting the Inquisitor on for a bit until the Inquisitor is gonna strap her into an interrogation torture chair. But fortunately, they don't show the little girl be tortured. Well, they don't even show that in Episode 4, and Leia did get tortured there, so in A New Hope. So, but
Do you think?
hmm?
Do you think the third? Do you think the Inquisitor, the third sister? Do you think she was having conflicting feelings about torturing Leia?
I feel like that maybe they were trying to show that, but it seemed like she was gonna press the button to me. So,
Oh yeah, I think she's still evil or whatever. But I think that like from they tried to show, I feel like she's not purely like evil person that just wants to torture kids.
yeah, I mean, she's not Anakin killing younglings or whatever. So,
Yeah, I think that I think it's was kind of interesting though that yeah she was she tried to use mind uh like force what is that force mind control or something like basically
yeah.
she was trying to like get the information out of her by searching her mind and Leia who obviously is the daughter of the chosen one
Hmm.
is she was able to resist.
Hmm.
um so I thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
The It kind of shows that why she, you know, I think this is kind of setting, in my opinion, why she even really believes in her cause throughout her entire life, and you can see she's very dedicated to it, and that's, you know,
Hmm.
I think this really sets her on her path of getting connected with the rebellion or helping to create the rebellion or whatever. So
I think that that's what they kind of tried to do was show, um, you know, give Leia more, her character more, um, what's the word, drive basically to be who she is later on, um, which which makes sense. I don't have an issue with that. I don't even mind that Leia is in this a lot. I think it is a little bit odd that she kind of gets to know Obi-Wan to this degree. I mean, she's obviously spent several days with him, and she's while she is a little kid, she is 10. Like, 10-year-olds remember stuff. So, um, that's my only issue with it being such a Leia heavy show, is that um, the more time she spends with Obi-Wan Kenobi, the more it makes episode 4 seem a little bit, I keep saying episode 4, and this is episode 4 of the series. The But it makes things in A New Hope seem a little bit odd. Like, she would basically know Obi-Wan Kenobi better than Luke did, and yet she doesn't show the emotion that Luke does when Obi-Wan Kenobi is killed by Darth Vader in episode 4. So it's just it's interesting. It's I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so then after they've done interrogation with Leia and everything else, so they eventually Obi-Wan, he finds her and everything, and Talia escapes. She kind of has some ballsy move there where she like says that she knows where Obi-Wan is, and then obviously he's found inside that freaking thing. Um,
Mhm.
I also found it kind of silly that Talia, as she was escaping the stormtroopers, she just like palmed one right in the face
Yeah,
with the helmet on,
I
and
like she grabbed, like, she did an underneath grab of basically his face, part of his helmet, and pulled. It was kind of
oh
cool,
yeah,
but
that one too, yeah. I kind of feel like some of the scenes are a little bit uh, I feel like they're kind of like they're not bad. They just kind of feel a little bit like fight
stiff.
scenes. Yeah, and stuff like that. I feel like it's not to the same quality as, for instance, a like obviously a movie or whatever. But that's
Mhm.
fine. I don't hate on the show. I actually enjoyed watching it.
Mhm.
Um I also so Obi-Wan floods the entire compartment as we've seen,
Mhm.
when they're escaping. What I thought was interesting was the as they're escaping, the two stormtroopers walk right past Obi-Wan and a little girl hiding underneath his coat.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I was just like, and they didn't even notice something strange. Like, why is this random person having a like third four legs on their little legs there? Well, I don't know. It just seemed kind of weird that no one said anything.
It's a little silly, but they did have Talia walking. I think her name it's Tala, but I think they say
Yeah,
it like Talia. But anyway, she's walking on the side that Leia is underneath Obi-Wan's coat, so she can hide it a little bit, but it is a little bit goofy that they
maybe
are
because
able to walk past all those people. But in an emergency thing, people aren't paying attention to that kind of stuff too much. And we
yeah,
all
because
know
the sirens
stormtroopers
are
can't
going
see
off.
well because they
Plus,
can't
she's
shoot
like
straight.
yeah, they can't shoot straight.
Yeah,
So, she's like a commanding officer, so it kind of makes sense.
yeah.
By the way, there's a thing. I don't know if you ever heard of this. It's called. I'm pretty sure it's called the Peter Principle. All right. So I was thinking about this on this episode. There's a thing called the Peter Principle, and it's basically you go up in like it generally has to do with like work conditions in office. You go up to a level of competency, right, for your as you go. So basically, until you're uncompetent or incompetent, sorry, until you're incompetent. So basically, it's talks the Peter Principle is essentially like someone will keep on going up in management until they've reached the high their like incompetency level, and maybe they're not the best person for that job, but they've made it to where they can't go any farther, right? So
Hmm.
in my opinion, stormtroopers are troops that are their highest level of competency is they can't even shoot straight, so they can't
Yeah,
go up in rank anymore because you saw Talia, she's able to shoot straight. So just saying, maybe stormtroopers are not a fiercest force in the galaxy at all.
They kind of address that to an extent in some of the other shows and stuff. How they're not clones anymore, so they're not like these super well trained soldiers. A lot of them are conscripts and even volunteer forces, but some of them are volunteer forces, but a lot of them are conscripts, so they're probably thrown into some, you know, janky training program and put out there on these planets to be troopers.
Yeah, so just using numbers type of thing.
Hmm.
The so yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting. The snow speeders, I forget what are they called. Do you remember? The snow speeders essentially
I
come
think
and
Obi-Wan
rescue.
Kenobi called them T-17s or T-27s or something.
Yeah, and they come in. It's Wade and I forget what the other lady's name off the top of my head is. They come in and rescue them,
Hmm.
and they were able to escape. Wade dies, even though you're like at that point you're like, who's Wade?
He was in one
uh,
other scene earlier.
yeah, exactly. He's the skinny dude that's in one scene,
He looked a little
and
bit like a young Steve Buscemi.
right. Um, so she, throws some kind of battery thing, blows him up or whatever, and
Hmm.
he crashes.
Hmm.
And then they're able to escape. Riva, the third sister, goes ahead, lets Vader know, like, hey, as he's choking, he comes
Hmm.
pouncing right in, right, and he's choking her and everything else, and then he goes ahead and just gently drops her when she tells him that, like, hey, I got a tracker on him, dude. And so I'm like, okay. And Vader just gently puts her down. I'm like, no, I want Vader to drop her to the just drop her from that height like he would
Yeah.
anyone else in episode 4. But what I'm trying to say is maybe this is not the most evil version of Darth Vader where in episode 4 he just don't give a crap. And so maybe we're not just at that point. I don't know. But I just kind of felt like a better point would have him dropped her and just like tell her, "Do not fail me again," or "Do not fail me," and then just walk away.
I mean, I can see how if he's like, oh, well, she actually did a good, um, that he's not going to make a federal case out of it, but an imperial case out of it. Um, but I don't disagree. Like it would be just like, yeah, I'm still gonna drop you instead of lower you peaceably to the floor.
Yeah, yeah, because I just don't feel like Vader would care.
Hmm.
Like it just that's my interpretation of Vader. So I just kind of saw that and I was like, that's kind of weird. But she, as we know, the third sister hid it inside the little droid. So
Hmm.
we'll see where this leads to.
So Lola is a horrible little spy now. That's what I'm.
Yeah, she converted her. She converted Lolo. Unfortunately, this is a big disappointment. Um, I hope that we get at the end, like they find out, like Talia notices the red eyes
Hmm.
of the droid, and is like, "This is bad. She's now a spy." And then what they do is they go ahead and they make Princess Leia smash and kill the droid. Just to teach
Why
her,
why do you want to traumatize the baby?
just like just like make Princess Leia smash the droid. Be like, come on, you can do it. Just like this is gonna completely mess up this kid. I'm just saying, I think the kid's already gonna be messed up. She's gonna start some rebellion or something BS. I'm pretty sure now.
Mm. I don't think that's gonna happen. I don't think they're gonna make Leia smash the droid. I don't.
No, I don't think that they're gonna do that. I think they'll just fix it or whatever. Or they'll be found. I think they'll be found. Obviously, traced to whatever planet they're going to. I don't
Mm.
think they mentioned where they're going yet.
Mm.
And then they'll
They're
show
probably
up and
going back to Jabim, I would imagine, or Yabim, or however it's said.
yeah,
The other thing I was going to bring up that I don't think that you found out about yet, but I did just a little bit ago, even though it's been out. I think the article I found was June 3rd, and I hadn't heard about this, but Obi-Wan Kenobi season 2 is reportedly already in development. So
See,
saw Disney saw dollar signs with this one being like one of their most watched programs ever, and they were like, let's churn out another one. So that could
hey,
be good or bad. I'm leaning
we'll
towards
have
bad.
to. Well, we could see. Let's see how this ends, and
Well,
maybe this ends positively,
according
and
to
we could.
the article that I was reading, they said something about they've actually already changed some stuff in episodes we haven't seen yet in order to make it uh, basically a new season more possible or to make more sense. So they're
Okay,
already tweaking the story somehow. I don't know
so
what they
so
did or re-edited or
so
something.
so basically, I can pretty feel confident now if they're gonna have a second season. I Here's the thing. I'm gonna come right out and say this. This is a bold statement, but I don't think Obi-Wan's gonna die by the end of this season. Though. I just That's my
Wow.
thought.
Way to go out on a limb with that one.
I'm just saying. I think I think I'm the first one to say this. I know there was some doubts that he might not live through this season, but I don't. I think he's gonna live. I think he is. I think he's gonna go on to do great things and become an old man or something.
Maybe, maybe. And by an old man, we mean 10 years from now or 9 years from now.
Right.
I see people like commenting on that, but to be fair, you're talking 9 or more 10 years in the desert, presumably, and, you know, he's already in his mid 40s, so he's between like 43, 45, somewhere in there. So
In
he
the
would
in
probably
the
be
is that
55
how
by the
is
time
that
A New
whole
Hope.
the sorry
He would
I
be in his
interrupted you.
mid 50s by A New Hope, probably.
Is so in right now he's supposed to be the Obi-Wan Kenobi supposed to be in his 40s. You said mid
Yeah.
40s.
Hmm.
Okay, so some people do age. If you notice that,
Hmm.
I've noticed some people like they look not too bad,
Hmm.
and then all of a sudden they get a few years older, and it just some people go downhill faster. You know,
Hmm.
um. So I think I don't have an issue. Like you said, he lives in the desert. It's not a great life. It could age him faster and stuff
Hmm.
like that. It's hard on his life. So I just don't see an issue with that either with him looking older or whatever. It's fine.
Yeah, I agree. And short of graying his hair or whatever, like he's never going to look exactly the same as Alec Guinness in
Yeah.
A New Hope. So calm down, people. It's the.
I would say that I'm excited that they're changing things to extend it. I would say that I'm interested in seeing how this ends before saying whether or not I'm excited
Yeah.
about a second season.
Hmm.
At least saying right now is that I'm hopeful that this ends well. But I will say that if it ends well, I definitely look forward to a second season. I'm sure they've learned things from feedback from the fan base
One
and
would
stuff like
hope.
that, and they can be like, okay, we can adjust it. Maybe that's some of the changes too they could have made in the last two episodes is, made adjustments to what some of the fan base has been saying. That could have been a benefit. So I personally really look forward to this and to seeing how this ends. I kind of wish they would just release it all at the same time so you could just we get through it, but and see, because we're left on cliffhangers on things you're kind of like some things you're like, why are they doing it this way? And so
Hmm.
I don't want to be negative about stuff because it could turn, I've seen other shows turn negative things into positive things. You're like, oh, wow, now I get it after you've seen everything. And then you see some other stuff where it just kind of go downhill. So,
Yeah. Yep. I agree. We'll have to see how it ends to see whether a second season is necessary or worthwhile. Um,
uh,
but yeah,
I hope if they do a second season, they're like, hey, why don't we get more Darth Vader and Obi-Wan? Just
maybe.
saying. I just want more Obi-Wan. That's
I
all I'm
I
saying.
honestly want them to bring in Darth Maul. I mean, I know we already saw Darth Maul's end in Rebels, but as I've said in previous videos, he's one of my favorite bad guys, my favorite Sith, dark side user, whatever. And whether they did it in live action or they maybe had a different thing happen between, uh, now in the timeline, the current Obi-Wan episodes to where he dies in Rebels, which is like I think like 5 years or something before um, A New Hope. But anyway, I just think it would be cool if they brought in Darth Maul. Um, the voice actor who did Darth Maul from Clone Wars and Rebels is still around. I'm sure he'd be willing to do it. I'm almost certain they could get somebody new to do the play the actual character, even if the voice actor couldn't. Maybe the voice actor could. I don't know, but
I'm sure money can solve a lot of problems.
I'm sure it could. But yeah, they got rid of the last guy because of some behavior issues.
Uh,
So hopefully they could find somebody else that looked like him. Then again, under all
nah.
that makeup and horns, I don't know if it really matters. But
Yeah, true. Um, so yeah, I think that this overall, I guess, let's give our own overall opinions about the show with for this episode or even up to this episode. What's your overall opinion so far of this season one? I guess.
I I mean, I've been enjoying it for the most part. There are some issues that I have with it, with mostly with timeline stuff, where I'm just like, why these things? Like, it seems like you're doing it just because you know that it's going to possibly be an issue, or maybe they're trying to make an issue that they can solve with more story. Which, if they do that, that's fine. Like the Grand Inquisitor death. But there's also the whole Leia thing too. Knowing more and more about Obi-Wan, it feels like, and Jedi in general, it feels like it kind of messes with the original story. But we'll see. Maybe it's, overall it might be fine. I'm not that picky the way some people are. Some people are like, leave everything exactly the same forever. I I'm fine with tweaking some things. Not everything has to be, you know, the exact way it used to be. I'm not one of
No,
these
I just
people where it's like you're ruining my childhood. But
right. I think that I think it's fine. I as long as I'm enjoying what I'm watching and it is at least somewhat connects to, keeps with the timelines and somewhat keeps with everything. Not like blatant obvious where, Mickey Mouse starts showing up or something, right? So I as long as it kind of keeps within, general timeline and Obi-Wan,
hmm
everything's good. I also agree. I think the other thing I would say is I've enjoyed it. I don't there's been things that are kind of like I felt a little campy, but I've also felt the same thing about watching The Mandalorian or even Boba Fett. Like,
yeah.
there's just some things, but I think that has to do with it's like a TV show, and it's I
To
can't.
be honest, that's also just the genre it is. If you
Yeah,
if you want to be real fair, going back to what the original Star Wars movies are and what they're based off of is basically space soap operas from, like, 20 to 40 years earlier, stuff like Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers and that kind of stuff. It's
yeah.
all it's all very campy, old style of stuff. But I think if they do it correctly in the way that George Lucas kind of did it, in my opinion anyway, is they laid a very um, well put together, in my opinion, story. Whether it's like the hero's journey or the fall of Anakin and how he became Darth Vader, both trilogies told a very like poignant, cool story laid over top of a space opera.
Okay. So, I like what you said. I think everyone can agree here. All you nerds that watch Star Wars, you heard it here. You are just watching soap opera for nerds, and
You're not wrong.
that's what we're watching here. So yeah, don't expect the greatest thing in the world. This is a soap opera, and yeah, yeah, I think we learned something here today.
hmm
You have anything else to add, Draugr, for this incredible episode 4? We're down to 2 episodes. Can you believe
I can believe it because I've watched them all so far.
it? Very true. All right. That is all I have.
Okay, me too. Join us next time on Secret Handshake when we talk about Obi-Wan Kenobi Episode 5 and turn a 30-minute television show into a 40-minute discussion.